Is he a good Samaritan or is he a bad Samaritan? Reserve seating starts right now.
Ooh, that was good. We're back.
We're back
Reserve
after a
seating.
week off. So we are talking about the much delayed MGM Amazon co-release of Samaritan, directed by Julius Avery, who last made Overlord, which I described as one of the noisiest movies I've ever seen in
Did
my
not see
life.
that movie.
And This is a Stallone action vehicle that feels like a script that was dusted off from the mid 90s, like 1997 era, like Steel, Batman and Robin,
I told you this
Warner
is the fourth
Brothers
best
movie.
action, the fourth best superhero movie of 1997.
It definitely feels that way. I think that if Andy from Toy Story saw this in 1997, it would be his favorite movie.
It's so interesting that Stallone took this because this feels like a movie Stallone would have taken in 1997. Like it does, it literally feels like
Yeah,
25 years have not gone by at all. This is just Stallone doing Stallone things.
it's interesting because maybe like Stallone got a taste of. I mean, well, and I guess he did Judge Dredd back in the 90s, but like, was he trying to chase Marvel and DC and like he just wasn't getting his own leading property and he was like, I'm gonna, kind of glam on to Samaritan as sort of like a cynical like commercial move? Or is this, because the thing that's so crazy about it, and it feels so much of the 90s of him, is like he kind of feels like he's in his licking his wounds like modest period where
Yeah.
it's like daylight and Copland and everything like that, where he's like trying to get his mojo back.
He's old Rocky and he's doing,
Yes, yeah,
you know what I mean? And he's doing Judge Dredd or whatever. And it's just a very, but like for some reason that endeared me to the movie a little bit because the movie again is also, script wise very much out of 97. It's there's a good guy, there was a bad guy. I mean, you've got Diet Michael Shannon running around going like, I want to be the bad guy, you're the good guy, I'm going to
yeah,
get you. And you're like, all right, man, come on. Like, this is what they used to tell us. Like, I guess at this point, people will have heard our Daredevil episode that Patrick and I recorded. And we talked a lot on that episode about like comic book movies before MCU, where like they were
yeah.
very, very different tonally. The mid 90s to the early 2000s superhero movies were treated much more like movies for teenage boys than the Marvel movies are now.
Yeah.
And so this one definitely reeks of that.
I like this way more than I thought that I would,
Yeah, I had
while
a feeling
still
you
like
would.
while still acknowledging that it's not quality wise one of the best movies of 2022. This is the best mall movie of
This is a
2022 that I've
hundred
seen
percent a
so
mall
far.
movie. This is 100% earnest, and that's what I will give it credit for. It wants to be a movie.
I was reading the IMDb trivia right before we came on, and it said that it was basically like they were trying to mix Unbreakable with Finding Forrester, which I thought was such an interesting combo for
Yeah.
that would make sense in 2002, but like in 2022, it's like
You can tell the movie that Stallone thinks this is. You know what I mean? You
he,
can see,
he
you can
definitely thinks, yeah, it's street level, like
he's,
Rocky Five at
he's putting it
least.
together in his head and going like, all right, this is what I'll do for the scene, and like, and he doesn't realize the sort of not. I don't want to say again. I don't want to say that it's amateurly made or anything like that, or that the script is sort of. It is prosaic. Like it's very much again the way these sorts of comic book movies were made when they were not socially acceptable the way that they are now. You know what I mean? Like that they're good and evil thing. The stakes are much different. Like there's got to be a little kid. The little kid has a mom, and like there's much more moviness to them than there were
Yeah,
before.
definitely, yeah, it's like a movie that you would see with your buddies in junior high and then go to the arcade and never tell the girls that you saw because
Exactly.
they wouldn't care. Yeah. I think it crystallized for me how much I was enjoying the movie by the end when like Stallone just kind of out of nowhere started having punchlines for bad guy deaths. My favorite being when he like shoves a grenade into a guy's torso and says "Have a blast,"
Yeah.
and I was like, "Where's this been all movie? This is amazing."
He gets real growly and in the third act of this. Like he just
Yeah,
gets real like clenched teeth. Like, I'm the bad guy. Like very Like,
Yeah.
he's like eating Edie's ice cream. There's this whole thing,
Yeah, he has to cool himself with Edie's ice
the
cream.
ice cream
And then the
thing.
kid's
And
just
then at
like, why
one
don't you
point,
just drink water? And he's like, I don't like the taste.
well, but there's all those little things in there where, like, at one point he's eating Cheerios and he's pouring apple juice on the Cheerios.
I'm so glad that you mentioned lore because I another movie this reminded me of a lot is Jumper because that was the one of the last times I remembered this largely uh you know slaughtered critically kind of franchise to be type of launch movie. And that movie, I'm watching it and I'm like, don't get sucked into the lore, don't get sucked into the lore. And then by the end of it, I'm like telling my parents, I'm like, you see, there's these jumpers and then there's these paladins and the paladin. And like while I'm watching this movie, I had that little kind of lore tingle where I
Yeah.
was just like, I'm just like, so Samaritan is like Nemesis, but Nemesis is like Samaritan, and it's
And
just
like,
like,
there's the implication that these were like the Iron Man and Captain America of their day in real life, where it was like some kids are Samaritan fans, and some kids, the guy like pulls his tattoo and he's got a Nemesis tattoo, and you're like,
yeah.
were these like presidents?
I know that this doesn't apply to like every one of these because Coming to America is part of this, and like that movie's garbage. But something always kind of perks me up a little bit when I'm watching like a direct to streaming movie, but it was meant for theaters because it looks like a movie a little
Like
bit
a
more
movie. Oh, yeah.
than like just a direct to streaming movie. And I will say this, like this would totally pass muster playing in theaters like at any point pre-pandemic. So
Sure.
it felt like you got like kind of a theatrical movie experience to me, which was nice because I was worried that I don't know, I'm just not ready for like DTV level quality Stallone stuff. Like I think
Yeah.
he's too good for it, and I'm happy that this was at least of a certain production value.
I think that this movie is like when we talk about the kinds of movies that don't get made anymore, the kind like we all lament it, like, oh, they don't make movies like this anymore. They don't make these kinds of like programmers, and they don't make a movie that's got this on its mind, or that's it's this earnest, or this like like it's so movie, as you say. Like, this is totally the kind of thing that people are asking for. This is what film
Yeah.
Twitter is asking for. You know what I mean? This is an action movie from 1997. That's what film Twitter is, starring Sylvester Stallone. Like, that's what people, in our circles are asking for. So I'm not even necessarily giving this a negative review. I'm not even saying it's bad. It is like the poster child for that kind of movie. It is exactly what somebody who grew up in that era would be nostalgic about.
It's like a junky movie that I had a lot of fun with. And this
So,
year I haven't had a lot of fun with too many movies, so it was nice to see just something I had low expectations for. It turned out to be fun.
all right,
Yeah.
next week.
Next week we will be back with a mailbag episode,
Yes,
our
the last one
September
went very
mailbag.
well.
So we will send out a tweet on our socials and ask you for your questions, and if there's any discussion topics you would like to hear about from the reserve seating team, we'd be happy to answer those. So until next time,
Eat your ice cream, kids.
only if it's Edie's.
Hmm.
We'll talk again.